It's 6 o'clock, so I will call the meeting to order. Everyone is here. Justin is excused. And if you'd like to join me, we don't have, the flag is behind me. It's always in a different place.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I don't believe we have a student council report this morning, so we will move right on to our superintendent report.
Excellent. I feel like it's been forever since we've been in this room. We certainly get out of practice in the month of July with just one meeting at the end of the month. We don't have committee meetings in July or December, so I hope you enjoyed your brief vacation. But we're back at it today and all day tomorrow, so this can be like the precursor for tomorrow's event. So I'm working on Vivying in. And sorry. Okay. So a few topics for me to share tonight. A couple things related to registration, summer planning, back to school professional development, and we have a guest tonight. And I'm still waiting on the Vivy, sorry. Sorry, thank you for the patience. Couple things as it relates to registration. Registration opened on July 1st. Jeff Wojcik sent out some information. Registration is going well. We continue to have parents that are logging in to Infinite Campus, just updating information, as well as new parents. Just from a quick numbers, overall our elementary numbers as a system, all three elementaries were down about 20 students total across the three buildings, but we are actually up 10 students in 4K alone from last year to this year. So seeing that early entrance, that continues to grow the system. So excited about our 4K early numbers. 10 more than last year is a good start with still a month to go. We're up 6 students at our middle school. So +6, -20 at our elementary, +6 at our middle school. So we've seen more students come to us, except we're -6 at the high school. So those two wash each other out, but we still have time. So overall, about 26 students down from last year, but we'll continue to watch that. Registration continues to stay open right up until the start of school. The other excitement that I have to share tonight is related to registration for busing. So last week we had a productive meeting with Johnson Bus to talk about next steps in building a system that's more created based on email, forms, etc. So Wednesday we'll send out a superintendent update related to having families sign up for bus transportation through a form through Johnson Bus. And Johnson Bus has also worked with us to create an official Port Washington-Saukville School District Johnson Bus email that families can email back and forth rather than relying on phone to contact Johnson Bus. That was one of the big pieces of feedback we heard from the survey, the parent survey, as well as from parents last year when I started. And then the next and final step will also be to build all of that connected to Infinite Campus so parents can see those routes at some point right in Infinite Campus, our management system. But this is a huge step forward in working with Johnson Bus, that this form will go out, a QR code, and will continue to remind families that you need to sign up for busing by August 16th to guarantee your bus on September 2nd. So really creating a timeline that is informative for parents to sign up, as well as the time for Johnson Bus to set those routes and really make sure that parents are prepared for the first day of school. So we're excited about that next step. As it relates, yep, go ahead.
Sorry, I love that. Not having to make a phone call is always good. Will they also email the route information then to parents instead of having to call back to get the route information?
That is the plan. Our plan is to not have to use phone conversations at all for bus routing, that they'll be able to use the form that parents email, their information, emails, student name, et cetera, that will then create a database for them to email back out rather than what has been, I would say, a little bit older process that they've used and relied on that is just a little more cumbersome and time intensive for parents.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep, excited about that. Next update is back to school professional development. I was told that it is not the 4th of July as a halfway point of summer. It's after fish days that you should start preparing for school, and it's like on the downhill. But I've also been told I saw some staff yesterday at North Beach, and they said, don't start a countdown yet. So I'm not starting a countdown yet, but we're getting closer. We have new teachers here August 19th through the 21st for new teacher orientation. And then we have all staff back on Monday, August 25th through Friday, August 29th. This includes the new Great Start conferences at our elementary schools, so parents will be able to come in on August 27th that night to meet their child's teacher and spend 20 minutes just getting to know the teacher, getting acclimated to the classroom, dropping off school supplies. And our elementary principals will be reaching out with information on how to sign up for those conferences in the next week or so. The other thing we're excited about, we're welcoming Dr. Anthony Muhammad to be our keynote speaker on Thursday. Certainly you can extend an invitation to the board to be a part of that. Introductory to really about professional learning communities, collaboration, culture, morale, is really a outstanding speaker. We're excited to welcome him in on Thursday, August 28th. And finally, we have a state champion in the house tonight. I invited Peyton Keller to join us in June, she was fresh off her state title. So come on up. We're going to make you answer questions, Peyton. As well as your coaches, you can come on up too. I invited both of her coaches to join us tonight. So I really want to get into the process of celebrating the accomplishments of our students as often as possible, whether they're athletic, music, academic. Winning a state championship is a big deal. So we wanted Peyton to join us here tonight. In a Division I caliber high jump competition. She won a state title with a couple photos here. So first of all, congratulations, Peyton. This track and field is near and dear to my heart. I love track and field. I think it's the best sport around. And high jump is also near and dear to my heart, so I appreciate you being here to celebrate with us. And certainly to congratulate you and your coaches. I'll turn it over to the board. They always have good questions for students, and so are you ready for the questions related to WIA State Championship caliber high jump questions?
Yeah.
Awesome.
What grade are you in, Peyton?
I'm going to be a senior.
You will be a senior, so you have another year. And have you thought about plans after your senior year?
Hopefully run track in college.
I'm sure
I've got a
there'll be
couple
people knocking at your
recommendations for
door.
that.
A blue gold?
Was this your first time at the state meet?
I went to state 2 years in a row, freshman year and sophomore year, but this is my first time podium.
Awesome. Congratulations.
May I ask for you to describe, what does it look like to train for a high jump? Like, I just see you jumping, but like, you have to train for that, so what does that look like?
It's a lot of training. You definitely have to do some running.
Running?
Yeah, there's a lot of running involved. Running in circles.
I think it took 19 jumps to win the state championship this year, and it was about 3 or 4 hours because there was a jump off. And if it wasn't for all the running that was done, it was her second day of competing. She also competed in the triple jump up there where she finished 7th in the state.
So 19 jumps during the meet where you won? Wow.
How high was your jump, and is it your highest ever, or can you beat it if you're not in competition?
My highest jump was 5.6. My winning jump was 5.4, but I definitely think I can go higher.
Cleared 5.6 at the state meet.
Oh, okay, it just wasn't the winning
That was
jump.
the school record right there.
Awesome.
You could jump over me.
School record before you.
5.5.
Okay.
And how old is that record, Coach?
That was from the two people did it in 1980 and 1994. So, and Payne is the first Division I individual state champion at the school for the girls in track and field.
And she had tied it sectionals. Did you tie it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she tried at 5.6 at a couple meets where we said, hey, you know, competition's already wrapped up. Let's put the bar up to 5.6, and some of them went well, some of them not so well. But I think kind of tying the record at sectionals and then going to state, and then that just iron sharpens iron, and she rose to the occasion and popped a really great jump that got her into a jump off.
She also broke a record that we thought was unbreakable, that was set by a Port legend in the triple jump. So that was quite the accomplishment, but Dr. McMahon can tell you about.
That's funny. That's very funny.
Do we know this?
That my wife held the triple jump record for a number of years before Peyton broke it. So, yes. So Julia Baranek's name is no longer on the list, and Peyton you can replace that. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
Very, very cool.
Excellent, congratulations.
I did not ask our staff to introduce themselves, just in case people don't know you.
I'm Blaine Masterson, communications teacher here at the high school.
And I'm Joe Adamek, the social studies teacher here at the high school.
Well, we hope to see you back here in a year. Well, maybe in June, because you'll be busy off, as a graduate. But good luck defending your title, and training starts today, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you for joining us.
Excellent, thank you.
And that concludes my superintendent's report.
We'll move on to my report. I just wanted to give a shout out to all of our staff for all their work over the summertime, for those that participated in our new LBC model at PD. According to Sarah's update to us, we had a 98.9% participation rate among returning staff. That's pretty impressive. It'll be exciting to see how that directly affects our students. Thanks to our building level administrators and the staff that are serving on hiring teams this summer and participating in the interview process. To the HR department that continues to onboard our new staff members. To those participating in work days and organizing our new Math Bridges curriculum and the materials. We got sent a picture of the hard work in all of those boxes. That's a monumental task, I'm sure, but very exciting. I can't wait to see how that rolls out and affects our students and making them successful in our new math curriculum. To our teaching staff that is teaching during summer school, and to our custodial teams that are getting our buildings ready for our students in just a little over a month. So thanks to all of our staff for all the hard work over the summer. While it should be time off, I know that a lot of them aren't really getting time off. So thank you to all of them for everything. And then to the board, the upcoming board dates are in your packet. And then we're going to move on to district committee updates. Were there any any district-wide committees that met since we last met? That report on? Nope. Okay. I do not see any public comment, so we will move on to consent agenda. Do any board members have any questions about the minutes, the business service report, the human resources report? Seeing none?
I actually,
go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go back to my notes here somewhere. I got to find my notes. The one question that I was going to ask was regarding the HR report with the resignations and retirements. So like my standing question that I always have here is, have we done the exit interviews for these folks? And when will we get the results of our compiled exit interviews?
Great question. I provided some slides for tomorrow. Through July 14th, we had sent out 39 letters, whether it's to an EA, certified staff member, asking if they would like to take our digital survey, as well as extending an invitation for an exit interview with me. We're now up to 42. We've sent out 3 more letters, so 42 emails, letters have gone out related to exit processes. To this point, 3 of those 42 people have taken the Google survey this year, and 9 have reached out to me for an exit interview, with 3 more in the last week having the opportunity to still set up that interview or exit interview. And then I have 1 scheduled for next week. So right around 1 in 4 will reach out to me for an exit interview, and 1 in 15, 20, actually no, 1 in 30 will do the actual Google survey. But we'll have that those results tomorrow at our retreat.
Great, thank you so much.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve consent agenda.
I move to approve consent agenda items A, B, and C as presented.
I'll second.
And that will take a roll call vote, Carolyn?
Okay. Alicia?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Kirsten?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Yvonne?
Aye.
Motion passed.
We will move on to new business, and the first order of new business is the 25-26 academic standards.
So in accordance with state statute, as well as our new policy reflecting this process, we are bringing forth the standards that we will use, and I'll turn it over to Sarah for just an outline of her report.
Pretty much, basically, we just have to have standards that we are using, and I think I might have mentioned this last year. We are welcome to create our own standards if we would want to do that, but that sounds not a lot of fun, so. And the Wisconsin standards are very rigorous standards. So pretty much every one of our departments adopts the Wisconsin standards. We are, right now, the Wisconsin standards for health education, which are very outdated, are in draft form for an update. So those have been highly anticipated because it's been a long time coming on those. So right now, I put both the SHAPE American National Health Education Standards on there because Wisconsin models, for FIAD and health, models after those standards. But since the Wisconsin standards aren't officially done, the work this summer that the health teachers were doing was based on the SHAPE National Standards. But they will be very, very similar when they are finally released. And hopefully they'll update the Human Growth and Development Resource Guides as well. So more on that coming soon as those standards are released. And I also want to point out the career and technical education standards were just updated this past year. So those are all brand new standards. So this summer with some of the LBC work, those teams have dug into the new standards and really had some time to look at them. Some are similar, some are, CTE is an area that needs to be updated regularly as things are changing rapidly, but they're fantastic standards, and they're very much created in the same way. So what is nice about that is when, even though we might have 1 or 2 teachers only teaching one of these areas, because the standards are created in a similar way, it really sets up teams to have collaborative conversations because their standards are modeled and created in the same way. And then for everything, I have that at the top as well as our career readiness standards. As you guys know, with our strategic plan, we've taken a lot of time digging into those, so very excited. For one of our new hires, we've already started digging into the career readiness standards, and that's some exciting work, considering she hasn't even been officially approved yet until tonight. But we have someone that's going to help support us in the middle and high school with that, so we're excited about that. I also this year included the Wisconsin Essential Element Standards because what those are is for about 98% of our students, they're going to be using the model academic standards. However, for our significantly cognitively disabled students, there are standards that are created. Basically, when a new standard rolls out, with it, usually like 1 to 2 years after, then they align the essential elements standards to the newly created standards. And those are standards then that are used for students that aren't probably going to meet the benchmarks. And if you've never had a chance to look at them, it's really fun to take a look at how we're asking those kiddos to do some pretty amazing things, even though it might not be up to the level of rigor of everybody else. So, any questions?
Could you just expand a little on that new hire, the academic and career planning strategist, and exactly how that's going to affect the standards and what that's going to entail since it's a new position to us?
So we had the opportunity, we had a resignation for one of our strategists. As we were shifting, we were having a strategist that was going to be serving the middle and high school in a number of capacities. She resigned just recently, and so we used that opportunity to sit and decide if is this the best use of this position, or can we better meet the needs of our district? And one of the things that we were feeling bad about was that our high school really didn't have a true strategist and instructional coach, and someone that was working with data and the teams. So this gave us an opportunity to sort of do two different things. We're really leaning into those career readiness standards. And we wanted to have a person that was able to sort of bridge that gap between the middle school and high school with the career pathways. We have a lot of amazing people that are working with the career pathways, but to have one person that will sort of be the coordinator of all of that work is fantastic to have. So this person will serve in that role. But when we talk about the academic and career planning, that's not just our CTE areas, not just our career areas. That is everything that we're having our kids do. So we are really lucky to have found a person that has over 23 years of experience teaching high school and teaching high school math, which is even better right now with our new adoption. And so we are really excited to invite her in to be able to work with the career readiness standards, to work with instructional coaching with our high school teachers, and to really be looking at all those academic and career planning things that we do, and just sort of being the coordinator for it, all that great work that's already being done. So we are very excited about that.
I'd just like to say thank you for putting all of these links in there, because Teacher Geeko, yes. So I dove in over the weekend, and really, those links are very helpful. Now, that stuff is available on the website for our parents, right? So, that being said, if parents are really interested in what we've got going in Port Washington, K-12, like, it's there, and all you have to do is dive in and look, and it's really pretty cool. So thank you very much. It's easy to follow. If I can follow it, I think anyone can. Just saying.
I have one question, because I think Yvonne answered my second question, which was whether or not these were available on the website.
That'll be posted, yep.
Okay.
As soon as they're approved, then we get those
okay.
posted to the website, yep.
So that was my second question, actually. The first question I have is, you mentioned that we could create our own standards
We could,
if we wanted to.
if we wanted to.
If, not suggesting it, just
Yes.
asking questions. But if we wanted to choose other standards than those provided by DPI, we could actually choose other standards as well.
They are, and I will say some districts and some subject areas will use, and it's usually the national standards. They might find that those are more helpful or useful or more fitting for what they're looking for, but at this time, most of the standards fit. Like I said, we're only using the national standards for health because they are newly updated, and we're just waiting for the DPI to catch up with those as well. So.
All right, thank you.
But certainly if we found something that we thought was a better, more rigorous match for our kids, we would consider that.
Kind of along those same lines, is the National Human Growth and Development more updated than the Wisconsin one?
They don't post it in the same way as
Okay.
the guide that we have. So what I'm anticipating is going to happen, and what we've been hearing is going to happen, that as soon as the standards get updated, they will take the guide that is currently there. And the outline of how they run that guide is pretty good. It's just that there is a lot of, health is another one of those areas that new updated information is really important to have. So we're anticipating that that would follow very closely after.
Okay.
If there's no other questions, I will entertain a motion.
Okay, I move that we approve the 2025, 2026 academic standards as presented.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will move on to DPI policies and procedures handbook of students with disabilities.
Somewhat similar timeline process. We'll bring this forward annually around this timeline as it relates to policies, procedure handbooks for students with disabilities, and I'll turn it over to Brian Sutton to kind of talk through this in this process.
So this is we decided to make this electronic because there's so many documents. There's a couple of documents that do need the statewide assessment calendar, and there's a couple of other things that we still are waiting on. So when we get those, we will add those to this. But this is really all the one-stop shop for our special education teachers and their case managers to be able to get access to guidance on all of the forms and things that we use for special education. and evaluations in special education.
And Brian, I know I asked you this, but this is an internal document for staff use?
Yes.
And then, like you said, some of the information isn't yet
Yep.
released?
There's still some stuff that we'll have to update once that's released by DPI.
Okay.
So may I ask, like, this document, one-stop shop kind of thing, this has been feedback from people you've worked with regarding their concerns, correct? And so this is how addressing
Yeah,
some of that?
I mean, a lot of these links, you'll see if you go to the links, go to guidance that the DPI has provided, and rather than have a guidebook that is a paper copy guidebook that teachers have to find, they can just go here and get the thing that they need, so they don't have to look that up all the time. They may be just looking for, what do I need to put on the I-4 when I start that out, or how do I open that and do those things, and so then it's there, and it's there. The guidance from the DPI, and then how they do that with our IEP software.
So one question on which document? The communication options for families. There is a box for a family engagement coordinator. Is that a position, and there's not a name or contact information there? Is that something we're looking to fill?
We have a family engagement coordinator.
Is that Corey still?
Yep.
Okay.
Corey Garrick is our family engagement coordinator. That's on, this might be a document, we could update this one as well. This one automatically updates and is just generated out of GoIdea or Oasis, out of Oasis.
Okay.
And so it has all the information on it that auto-generates whatever information we have in it.
Okay, thank you.
If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I motion to approve the DPI Policies and Procedures Handbook of Students with Disabilities as presented with updated links as they become available.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we will move on to our school perception survey.
Yes, so I guess somewhat familiar to many board members as it relates to school perceptions, but also new at this time of year. We used school perceptions last fall to survey families about the possibilities of going to referendum. Through that work, we also learned that their model of surveying staff and families could meet our needs. We had previously used a tool called Panorama, that as we looked at budget, as we looked at all things related to budget, we saw that this would be a budget savings. And so School Perceptions did such a nice job of creating a process for us to follow, getting staff, community, and family engagements on that survey. For the referendum, we felt it would be a great opportunity to move to them for our staff and family survey. And so this is a result of that survey. So I'm going to go through a couple of topics as it relates to that. If it will work, there we go, sorry. My apologies. So very similar to the slides they shared when they came to present for the referendum. This is really the overarching, there's background, respondent information, analysis, and then they provide some just overall thoughts. We're going to start with the staff survey. This survey window was open following spring break through April 16th of 2025 for staff to fill out. They were sent multiple times. The survey was sent multiple times specific to the staff that had responded. So if you didn't respond a week out, you were getting a reminder. If you didn't respond a day out, you were getting a reminder. This resulted in 279 respondents at a 69% participation rate, which is statistically significant as it relates to our survey. So we're excited about that response rate and the viability of these results. As it relates to who took the survey, our biggest building is Port Washington High School. And so good that they are the highest respondents. So 26% of the respondents were from Port Washington High School, 25% from Thomas Jefferson. Saukville and Dunwoody are two larger elementaries, and again, that reflects their staff taking it, followed by district office, and then district-wide would be those staff that work in multiple districts, buildings, whether it's OT, PT, et cetera. What best describes your position? 52% of the respondents were classroom teachers, followed next by paraprofessionals, educational assistants at 15%, educational specialists, those are our school psychs, OT, speech, support staff, administration, and then we did give the option to not answer, that some staff chose to do that. including the current year. How many years have you worked in the district? And this is the tale of two sides, right? We have our staff of 1 to 5 years, around 43%, and more than 10 years at 38%, with 6 to 10 right at that 19%. We actually looked at this data today as an ad council team as a part of our admin retreat and just kind of talked about some of the results and how those two groups tell a different story as it relates to a couple things. So we'll kind of pull some of that data out. This is like the pre-retreat for tomorrow. We won't go over this again tomorrow, so take good notes so we can talk about it at that point when we bring it all together.
Michael, do you know how these percentages in the years working compared to like our overall percentages of distribution?
So I can go back, I can look to see what our panorama survey results were previously. Also, we can go back to see when we did the communications audit and engagement audit with Donovan in the winter of 24-25, what that looked like. We can do that. But I would say, 69% of respondents is that what you're referencing?
Oh, no, I mean, like, the distribution, 43%, 19, and 38. How similar is that to our distribution of total employees?
I can look that up.
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty close. I mean,
Yeah.
but we can.
That's what I'm interested
Yeah.
if is,
Yeah,
if you're finding newer people respond more, or,
gotcha. Yep, we can look into that.
thanks.
The survey was broken into 4 responses, I guess 5 responses, 5 being strongly agree, 4 being agree. We did not offer a neutral at 3. We wanted people to simply be positive or negative. And then don't know was a 0 rating and did not include in the overall calculation. So really looking at anything above that 3.0 being on the positive side of a response. And so as School Perceptions put together the data, you'll see that they rank them on a 1 to 5 Likert type scale and an average as it relates to that calculation. So they broke those into 5 categories. The categories are academics, engagement, support, student experience, and staff experience. And they put all of those questions into one of those 5 buckets. And then they also, as a survey company, have surveyed across the country. And so they have a number of comparison districts. And so for this year, we don't have a previous score. We did not use School Perceptions in the past, but in future years, we'll be able to say, this was last year, this is how much it's changed. But for this year, we're really truly looking at the comparison district. And so as you look at this, academics, we are above the comparison district as it relates to a 3.55 score. Support, we are exactly the comparison district equivalent to. We are above for student experience at 3.82 compared to 3.68, and we are slightly below as it relates to staff experience and engagement.
Michael, so the comparison group, that's their entire book of business?
Yep.
That's not like similar school district size or something like that?
That and, so yes, they look at across that, a district our size, they're not going to compare us to a district of, 200 kids in smaller families, so they do hone that in.
Do they do some like regional mapping as well?
I can ask that. As a School Perceptions company, they're out of Slinger, they're in Wisconsin, so much of their audience, I believe, is Wisconsin, but they do surveys across the country and have some pretty, I guess, an overarching envelope of people that they work with, so I would say this is really good comparison data for us. Again, this is kind of the item analysis as it relates to 5, 4, 2, 1, and looking at scores. And so as it breaks down to the workday, you can see where we score. If in the far right category, there is not a comparison score and it's listed as NA, that's a reflection of it is an individual question for us as a district. And so one thing that we did want to make sure we did is we saw some really good questions in our panorama survey last year that we asked School Perceptions to include this year, so we could look for differences in comparison. And also just for staff to be really specific about roles and responsibilities. So one thing we heard from the staff last year is that when it said, my administrator, were they talking about the superintendent? Were they talking about the principal? Were they talking about a director? So some of that language we pulled out to be very specific to get very clear feedback from staff and parents. From the workday perspective, our staff does a good job of educating our students. 96% of our staff agreed with a score point of 4.43, above the comparison district at 4.23. You can see all of the categories. Also just kind of break it down from that 4 to 5 score. So hoping for positive responses, and we're really overall seeing really positive responses across the board. As we've pulled out and looked at some of these things from our district to comparison districts, we've started to action step and plan around what are those next steps. I feel supported by my supervisor, administrator, and when I make a decision. Certainly 81% is a good positive response at 3.84, but below the comparison district. And so what does that mean for us? Workday continued. You can see a couple of them below below the comparison district. I feel comfortable sharing input and concerns with my supervisor administrator. Below the comparison district, information important to my work is shared with me in a timely and effective manner. And the district seeks input from broad group of staff members are all areas that we can improve communication. And so one thing that we also did is we also started to dig into comments. And so while this tells one story, what do the comments also tell? And we'll be able to dig into that as action steps as well. District, staff handles discipline in a consistent manner. That was a celebration that our staff feels that they're handling discipline in a consistent manner. But as the very next question points out, there's more policy practices that I think could be reflective of the fact that we now have Neola in place. We have concrete handbooks in place. So we're hoping that is a reflection of that action to be above the comparison. That is one that we are below 3.0. So as we think about, that's more of the negative added aspect of that. Environment. Superintendent presents a positive image of the school district was one of those questions we pulled out. We wanted to see that. That is not a school perception survey, so we don't have comparison. I feel safe at work. That's a really important one. As you'll see from our strategic plan in a little bit, safety is an important part of that. My principal, supervisor, calling out principal specifically, again, 4.18 tells us that we agree or are on the closer to the agree, but certainly towards the strongly agree. And all students are valued and respected for their values and beliefs above the comparison district. You can see a number of the questions that we created. All of these do not have comparisons, but really wanting to call out some questions from the panorama survey. Superintendent is responsive in addressing staff concerns effectively, 3.89. School leaders clearly identify their goals, 3.80. And my principal is an effectual instructional leader, 3.68. And my principal is responsive and addresses staff concerns effectively. As we look internally, we can also break it down by building and have conversations as an admin team. How is it that this building is doing this versus this building? And that's where we can start to dig in. Some more environment. I'm recognized for doing a good job above the comparison district. The district is heading in the right direction above the comparison district. Last year, I received useful feedback to help improve my work below the comparison district, but again, recognized for doing a good job, we were above. So really digging in and looking at comparison questions to see how can we pull things out to really fine tune and focus on what we need to do. School board is doing what it takes to make our district successful, 3.5 in a comparison district of 3.55, so 70% overall on the positive above 3, but certainly we can start to think about board goals, and that's an action step that we can take as a team here.
Were there comments included, or is it just numerical feedback?
Yep, so we'll be able to share just comment themes with the board as a part of our retreat tomorrow, that we were able to pull that. I have opportunities for training. This is really driven by professional development and some things that we have to do differently there to provide support. We do believe LBCs, and what Sarah had commented before, we have really high engagement in learning-based compensation this summer. We also know that some of our PD this summer was driven by state laws and some of those things, so we are hopeful that our new system for 25-26 and providing PD and support for staff will change some of these things. Survey section, as it relates to support, I have a healthy working relationship with my coworkers. 100% of our staff agreed with this. They feel like they have connections. I think you're going to see the similar connections from our parents as it relates to them having, their kids having connections with staff. You're going to see that growth and that connection to relationships across our surveys. All 4 of these areas, or I should say 3 of the 4 being above the average. Support as it relates to technology, really strong. Huge shout out to our tech team for building a system that our staff can walk in the door and teach without having issues. Our parents and community support the school district. We feel strongly about this community. I think that's also reflected in our referendum results. Our school supports students from diverse backgrounds, again, above the comparison district and matching the comparison district as it relates to materials and supplies I need to do my job. My colleagues have positive attitudes was something that we wanted to take from school perceptions. It is not a comparable, but school facilities are clean and well kept was below the comparison score. But you'll also see that in another question as it relates to our daytime maintenance, we are seeing positive response. So looking at where does that fall short? What do we have to focus on? Finally, staff input is valued. below the comparison score. So what is it that we want to get feedback on, and how do we support them? District pay practices are fair, well below. This is the one area that we saw as a huge area of growth, but also goes back to who took the survey. We had 42% of our staff 1 to 5 years take this survey, and those are staff that we really recognize needed to see a different compensation system. And so we believe our pay practices and our compensation system will lead to growth in this standard, or this survey question as you think about who took the survey. Certainly where you fall in their career and where that impacted our salary schedule certainly was very different for our 1st through 5 years and our 20 through 30 years. So we've built a retirement for all, which we believe will be impactful. And then district manages funds appropriately. This survey was given right around the time we were cutting and making final cuts around $1.2 million. So. Summary data, the top 5 scores, our top 5, really something to be proud of. We have a healthy working relationship with our coworkers. Our staff are working well together. Daytime maintenance staff completes work orders in a timely fashion, so a huge shout out to our daily maintenance staff, daytime maintenance staff. Our staff does a good job of educating our students, 4.43. I have access to the technology and support I need, and our school has processes to ensure every student has a connection with at least one adult in the school. School is a huge, huge celebration as we think about connections. Our bottom 5, we just talked about. District manages funds appropriately. We had a very tough set of decisions as it related to balancing a budget last year. You saw the preliminary budget in June that we're moving forward with a balanced budget moving forward, and that's really driven by some of that tough work that we did, and this survey came out right in the middle of that. Pay practices are fair. We talked about that. Our school's student discipline practices and policies are effective. This is also what drove our Neola work and some of the work that we related to code of conduct. And the staff handles discipline in a consistent manner. While above the 3.0, this is one of our bottom 5, and the district seeks input from a broad group of staff members. As it relates to staff, we are below the comparison score as it rates from a 0 to 10. How likely are you to recommend the district as a place of employment? You'll see later on in our strategic plan that we're also pulling this survey question out as an indicator for success on our key performance indicators, and really looking at people that are promoters of our district and really pushing for staff to come here, and how do we shift that to see more green rather than red or orange. Questions on staff survey before we move into the parent survey?
Did they give you any feedback for the 30% non-participators? Like, are they typically disgruntled? Typically, do we have any information about the group that chooses not to reply?
I think it's a mixed bag. I think I don't know why you wouldn't take the survey. I love to take surveys. I love to give feedback, timely feedback. So I guess I think it's probably a mixed bag.
Okay.
In my experience as a principal and administrator giving out surveys, I always wanted to be vulnerable with results and share the results. And I just remember regularly sharing results that said, hey, Michael needs to do X, Y, and Z, and having staff members say, well, I knew you were doing that, that's why I didn't take the survey. So I think it's a combination. It's certainly people that are just, one, maybe they don't think their voice is going to be heard, but I think using a forum like a school board meeting to share, we are willing to be vulnerable, share this data, and then at back to school convocation, we'll share it as well. And we're going to progress monitor, and we're going to work on getting better. So I think maybe once we build that culture that they see the results and they know that we're doing something with it, I think that's also important.
And we'll get the comments tomorrow, like individual
Just
comments?
the themes of those comments. Parent survey report. So not quite the same level of participation. We had 467 respondents, 18% participation rate, which is close to that statistically really significant. As you think back to our referendum, surveying this big of a group, we were looking at that 18 to 23% to really hone in on data, so we're close to that. We would like to see more engagement, but this is where we are today. And again, this will be in the updated beacon and some successes with this survey, so we'll know then, hopefully, that when we can get that out to people, they realize that we're looking at it. And so once you take their feedback and survey information serious, they're more likely to do it in the future. As it relates to where your child attends, you'll see that this data does not add up to 100% because families have kids at multiple buildings, but you can see that the highest responses came from Port Washington High School and Thomas Jefferson Middle School, followed by Saukville and Lincoln. Dunwoody being a little bit bigger than Lincoln, but still not as responsive as it relates to those other buildings. grade level that your children apply to, really a pretty overall balanced all grade levels, other than second grade outperformed. So shout out to the second grade families. I think that's the class of 2036. Thank you for being the number one class for respondents. So one of my children received the following services. You can see that we're also looking in and we can disseminate the data and differentiate as it relates to TAG, special education, 504, free and reduced lunch, or none of the above. We can also differentiate based on how they identify as white, more than one race, Hispanic, Black, or African American, Asian, as well as all of that. And so we're really able to dig in more, but this is what school perceptions gives as a high level. We do have that ability to dig in a little bit deeper. Same process for index analysis, 5, 4, 2, 1, with 0 being don't know and not impacting the positives. Also similar, we don't have a previous score, so we can't see the change, but it is grouped into 5 buckets. Do parents feel informed? Do they feel included? Do they perceive educational excellence in our district? Atmosphere and experience, and you can see that we've got some that were above the comparison district as it relates to informed, included, and right at that close one for atmosphere, but again above in experience. And then educational excellence is something that we need to continue to strive for every day. So as it relates to leadership, first and foremost, again, we wanted to be really clear with some of the language. So this question specifically calls out the superintendent is responsive to addressing parent concerns. There is not a comparison score, but something that I take pride in. And I think this also is reflective of meeting with 100 people in my first 100 days certainly helped. So if that number goes down next year, I'm going to have to do 100 more people. But I think that is important feedback that we can't get better without feedback. So district administration is doing what it takes to make our district successful is an area that we're below the state, but I do believe, below the comparison, I should say, but I do believe our strategic plan that we're going to see next helps us shape really that vision for all of us moving forward. Heading in the right direction, same thing. I'm excited to share the strategic plan next as it relates to what our vision looks like. Next one, school board is doing what it takes to make our district successful. Again, I think that strategic plan answers those 3 questions, big questions. And then the district manages funds appropriately. Really different response rate as it relates to our staff from our community, as it relates to balancing that budget. That was one of our lower areas as it related to the staff survey, but our parents are seeing, again, 3.15 positive rather than the negative side from our staff. Overall, how would you rate communication from the school? Good and great, 77%, certainly a positive. That is above the average or the comparison score, so we're excited about that. Communication is going well. This is a stark difference from the audit that was done in the winter of 2024, so a huge celebration. We actually sent this data from school perceptions to our Donovan group that is representing us from a communication standpoint to kind of share what did we improve upon, and some of that we'll be putting in the beacon, that you as a community responded on the family or the communications audit that this is what we needed to improve upon. And now, spring of 2025, we've seen some significant growth already, so we're excited to celebrate that. How would you like to receive your information? Clear weekly school-related email updates is really the way that they want to receive their communication. Weekly district email updates, school newsletters, and district app are some things that we need to focus on. Knowing that most of internet searches are done on a phone, we do see the app as an opportunity to grow, and so we do have a new visual of the app. If you've tuned in the Port Washington-Saukville School District app lately, it has changed a little bit through our work with CMS for Schools. So you can see that, and we continue to work on that. How often do you like to receive communication from your child's school? Most parents responded weekly. What topics are you interested in learning more about? District goals and plans. So our next beacon is going to be a double-page spread about the key performance indicators in the strategic plan, if it's approved tonight. Student achievement and successes, school safety and security, and extracurricular offerings are the big ones that they want to learn more about. The district website is easy to navigate. On the positive side, almost 90% felt always or sometimes. This is a huge improvement from what we saw in the past, so we're excited about that. Always room for improvement, though. The district website is informative. 93% felt that it was informative. And the district website is up to date. 96% of respondents felt it was up to date. Now to dig into some of those more specific Likert type scale, school experience. I feel welcome at my child's school. Huge celebration above the comparison score 4.22 is a huge number to be successful as it relates to welcoming our families. And this comes in response to the year that we added Raptor. And as you recall, every parent that had to come into our buildings had to show an ID in order to do that. That was the first year we did that. So certainly this reflects that change, but also the positive feeling welcome even through that. So a shout out to our administrative assistants at all of our buildings for creating that welcome environment in the face of, hey, I need to see an ID, but still knowing that safety is at the forefront. School staff treat my child with dignity and respect above the comparison. School facilities are clean and well kept. Our parents, a little bit below the comparison, still 92% agree that that's something that we're proud of. My child feels safe at school, a little bit below the comparison. That's something we have to work on. And the school provides opportunities for parental involvement above the comparison, as well as if my child breaks a school rule, they are treated fairly. The principal is responsive in addressing parent concerns effectively. This is our own question, but our principals wanted this feedback. Again, we can look at which building is doing this at a different rate, and that is a true collaboration PLC. How are you doing it? Why is it that your score is X, Y, and Z, and how do we support each other? I know how to support my child's learning. This is one thing that we do need to provide more opportunities. We believe the Great Start Conference will launch this with elementary parents to say, this is what we're doing, this is how you can support your child, knowing that the first and most important teacher in a child's life is their parent. I think this is something we continue to engage our families with. We have really involved families and parents, so how do we support their child's learning? It comes down to our staff helping with that process. My child gets the help they need, and a little bit below most days my child enjoys going to school. Still overall positive agreement, but a little bit below the comparison score. I'm updated on how my child is doing at school, 3.92, above the comparison. My school has high expectations for my child. This is, again, that achievement, falls into that achievement category. How do we raise the rigor for all and be above the comparison school district in this topic? Healthy school culture, a little bit below. You can see really on the cusp on a number of these, really close to the comparison district. Below the comparison district as it relates to I'm satisfied with our school's efforts to address bullying. This is something we saw across all buildings. It's also something that we're seeing across the country in many schools. Bullying, funding, finance as the three areas to focus. And so those are clearly three things that you're going to see in our strategic plan as well. Overall homework expectations, we like to ask this question. 64% of parents said just right. 17% said too little, 8% said too much, 11% don't know, it doesn't apply. I'm guessing that's 4K, 5K, not giving a whole lot of homework then. Does your child currently participate in school-sponsored sports or extracurricular? 72% said yes, that's a huge response rate. We're excited to have kids involved in winning state titles like we've presented tonight. My child has access to reliable internet outside of school, 98% said yes. Bus transportation, as we related to our superintendent's update, knowing some feedback that we got on the bus, we knew we needed to make some changes, and Johnson Bus has been very receptive to those changes. Overall, 36% of our population rides the bus, and so we know that we have to change it for that group. How satisfied are you with the bus services? 74%, very satisfied or somewhat satisfied. This is something that we'd like to grow with that process that we've outlined earlier today. Planning priorities. What are the 4 areas that you believe should focus on planning efforts? Really interesting data here. Life skills. Our community has also recognized parents. As we've talked about career ready, learning ready, and life ready, our parents are starting to see that. How are we preparing kids for a changing tomorrow? Recruit and retain high quality staff. Our parents want high quality staff, and so how are we retaining them? Mental health services for students, career technical education. So some of the areas that we were the lowest score on are not the priority. And so I do believe this reflects of some of the key performance indicators, and the levers we're really pulling hard on to work hard on are also the things that our families want us to do. Not to say that just because budget and bullying and finances aren't the top 3 that we're not working hard on those, because those are the things that have to happen. But as it relates to what families and staff and families and parents are saying, we are certainly impacting those things. Math achievement, I was hoping it would be a little higher, but they must have saw that we adopted a new math curriculum. And you can see all of those. So summary data, our top 5. I feel welcome at my child's school. School staff treat my child with dignity and respect. My child's teachers are responsive. And I have at least one staff member I feel comfortable contacting, and school facilities are clean and well kept, are all huge celebrations. We'll highlight these at back to school and maybe even throw up some pictures of some of the people that are the face of this work. school facilities are clean and well kept is really the hard work of our custodial and maintenance staff, so a huge shout out to them. Bottom 5, you can see these scores are still high compared to our staff, so still a celebration here, but work that we have to do. A lot of these, I think, are directly tied to the next presentation that I'll give about the strategic plan and where we're going to pull on certain levers to show success long-term. Overall, we are below the comparison school as it relates to families recommending our district. 18% extremely likely to recommend, 25% we're at that 8. So really finding who are the promoters and how we can do this. This is a direct question on our strategic plan. And that brings us to the end of the parent questions on our parent survey. Keep it all fresh in your mind for discussion tomorrow as well. We could have just had a retreat tonight.
You'll dig into some more details tomorrow with similar to the staff, right?
I just want to thank you for putting these surveys out to parents. This is something that historically hasn't been done in our district, and I think it's a way for us to really see where our needs lie, where our celebrations are, and gathering the data that will help us move forward in so many ways. So thanks for your leadership and putting those surveys out.
The Monday after spring break every year. Look for it in your mailboxes.
Perfect. We'll move on to strategic plan then. Woohoo.
So, really a lengthy process. I started in preparation for this. I really went back and where did this process start? Dating back certainly to some of the work that Dr. Weber left as he was retiring for Dave Watkins and then Mel Nettesheim. I found all kinds of letters related to the work that's gone into the strategic plan that brings us to tonight. So thank you to all of those individuals that helped get us here. There has been lots of engagement with the community around this. So really, really a labor of love. And it's taken us a while to get here, but we're excited to finally bring this forward for board approval tonight. So it's driven by the same expectations that you will see on the state report card each and every year. Each and every year, the state gives us a report card as it relates to fails to meet expectation all the way to significantly exceeds expectation. We strive for that 5-star rating in every school report card. And really to create consistency, we've built our KPIs around this same process. Key performance indicators are really where we want to put our time, energy, finances, efforts as it relates to really changing what we believe will push our district forward. We also believe in communicating these results. So the next beacon is set to go out in the next few weeks here, really driven by informing the community of these 6 key components of life ready, learning ready, career ready, safe and healthy schools, engagement, and finance operations facilities as the 6 key buckets or areas that will really drive the success of our district and really give us perspective on what we need to work on. This is really reflective of the work of the community and some of those listening sessions that we've had over the last number of years. So first and foremost, you can't operate without funds. And so our first topic is our first key area as it relates to strategic plan is finance, operations, and facilities. And the 6 areas are financial audit, fund balance, open enrollment, facility plan, technology plan, and insurance. And so as it relates to the financial audit, each year we are expected to do that audit. And as you relate, we certainly provide the definition, the why, and the how. I think what I really want to focus on for tonight is where we fall in the continuum at the bottom. So fails to meet expectations all the way to significantly exceeds expectations. We're looking for an audit that has a management letter with 0 to 1 findings and no significant concerns. That is around the timeline of February each year. We bring that audit. This is when we would update the board on where we fall on this continuum, really looking to meet, exceed, or significantly exceed expectations, and is a way for us to continue to shape finances and be held accountable as it relates to that audit. Otherwise, that audit is simply an agenda item on a board meeting with no key connections. So pulling it out as a key performance indicator. Fund balance is another thing. We really looked at policy to drive this process and added some things based on staff feedback, community feedback, that meeting expectations falls within that policy of 12 to 14.9%. Thinking of a rainy day fund, how can we still maintain our payroll and those things? exceeding expectations would be above that, but then also maintaining a balanced budget and a possible surplus. So if we continue to deficit spend as it relates to the fund balance, and we're still above that 14.9%, I don't think that's a good use of taxpayer dollars. So making sure the fund balance is both within policy and then also in a setup that we're passing a balanced budget each year. Stephanie, questions on this one? I know we talked.
I guess, so for the significantly exceeds expectations, my question was just like, when do we have too much money that we're not reinvesting back into the schools or looking for opportunities rather than just like having a huge slush fund? Is my question.
Yeah, right, it's a delicate balance. You don't want too much, because then, you know, in the future, it really does look like, okay, why are you not giving more? And I think we would probably get called out by staff as well. That's why you typically have that 16% is a very healthy point to be at. Too much higher than 16%, we will get questions. We typically would in most districts. But some districts run off. Boards want to see a 20% in there. That's what their goal is. For us, a 16% is in board policy because it is a healthy balance. It gets us through maybe a rainy day, but it also allows us to put money into that Fund 46, as well as being good, you know, stewards of taxpayer dollars, so that we're not just sitting on any. There also is the option in the future then to under levy, which we would not encourage, obviously because that would set us up for varying degrees of budget in the future. But yeah, 16% is a pretty healthy, it's healthy but not too healthy where we're just sitting on extra funding that the taxpayers are putting in, if that makes sense.
Delicate balance.
It's very delicate. And it depends on what you have in the future too.
Yeah, my question was just that there's no cap for the exceed.
Yeah, you typically wouldn't have a cap either. It's usually something that you discuss with your board and then obviously talk to your community members and say if you're, and it definitely ties, which is why this is such a key component to this entire strategic plan. There's a restricted funds and there's unrestricted funds. So our restricted funds, we may go up to a 20% 1 year fund balance. However, if they're restricted funds to go through something that's going to capture funding that we're going to need in 2 years, say if we know a curriculum's coming up and Sarah and the team and the teachers need a health and phy-ed curriculum in the future, we know that's going to cost some funding. We're going to save for that as much as we can, and we'll have it under restricted funds. And when we get our audit done, that would be listed as technically we don't have 20% because we're already spent, and that's for future purchases.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How do those numbers come into play, like for our referendum when we go out to borrow money?
In terms of
A better rate possibly? Or
yep.
a
Oh,
better-
yeah, absolutely.
rating.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just want to make sure I was clear on the question.
Yeah.
Because obviously we can't offset any expenses from those bond proceeds that are not in the legal definition, and vice versa. We could technically move a transfer of Fund 10 to a Fund 40, just like we do Fund 46. However, you're absolutely correct. The higher fund balance within reason, delicate balance, that's not restricted or restricted is going to look better when we go for our rating again.
Next, open enrollment, knowing that there has to be a healthy balance, that students coming to us have to exceed the numbers of students leaving us. Each fall, we'll bring this information to you as it relates to that process. Our goal is to see that 10.1% or more students enrolling in versus enrolling out. We were a district for many years up until 2020 that saw more students in, and then since COVID has been reversed. And so we're slowly trending back towards more even in and out, but also continuing to look for opportunities. If this means, in order to get to that 10.1%, that we have to add a different opportunity, whether that's a virtual school or a charter school, we see those things as opportunities to add enrollment. While I'm not saying that now, those are all things that we would bring to the board to say, hey, this is a key performance indicator. How do we get more students? And so I think the work that we've done over the last year to create processes, systems, math curriculum, all those things are going to continue to entice and build us as a destination district for people to enroll to. But this is also something we'll bring back in the fall as it relates to open enrollment. Facility plan, we want a plan that supports our community's goals and wishes. We just passed a referendum to update many things that have been deferred maintenance at many of these buildings. So moving forward, we have to plan for that. And so we have to make sure we have funds for the roof at the new Saukville in 55. And so that is intentional and thoughtful, and those things have to be saved for. And so what we've been very clear with our community is that this referendum has set us up for success, and now we have to do the work to balance the budgets as well as save for future facilities. And by having a plan, we can set aside those dollars, and this drives that work for the board to say, hey, we do have a need for new blacktop, a new parking lot, a new roof, and that gives us time and thought process to plan for that, rather than needing to go to referendum again. Technology plan, really similar. Another huge key budget item is the technology, and so having a 5-year plan that supports that and helps fully fund that is the other thing that we have to be thoughtful of in planning for the future. Technology is always changing and impacting instruction. I remember back in the day when we talked about one-to-one initiatives. Now it's way more than one-to-one, as we have students and families or students and staff with a cell phone, a watch, a Chromebook. There's multiple touch points, so building the bandwidth and the internet to maintain that has to be an ongoing work for our technology plan. Moderate, as we think about insurance and providing our staff with affordable insurance, knowing that this can impact our overall budget, having a mod rate that is based on workers' comp claims that is supportive of lower claims, lower dollars going to that is really something that we focus on, which then grows, gives money back to Fund 10 to spend on students.
What is our current mod rating?
It's actually below 0.79. Now, we've had a couple of things this year, so we're probably going to be slightly above 0.79 for next year, but right now we're under 0.79. We're very good. Sorry.
Life Ready is our next category. So thinking about this as it relates to our career readiness standards, we've talked a lot about student involvement, attendance, and graduation rate really reflect to those parent surveys we just did. So student involvement, we want 90 to 100% of middle school and high school students participate in a school-sponsored, school-recognized club or activity. Doesn't necessarily have to just be here, but one thing that we heard from the community through some of our listening sessions is, what is another club, FFA, something that's maybe offered outside, 4-H, are those things. And so working with our Infinite Campus system to acknowledge and identify those students when they're involved and finding connections. We know that when staff and students are connected, they're more likely to have better attendance and be here. Attendance, just like I just said, being here is important. So on the school report card is where we'll pull this information. We want 95 to 100% of students in the district considered regular attenders or attendees as it relates to the state report card will be our measure. This is something that we want to significantly exceed expectations, but we also have to work with our families to say, what is the calendar that best fits your schedule? So these are things that we'll come back and get feedback on, but we want to build a schedule and a calendar that supports students, because it's not always necessarily, it's other things that kids are involved in that are taking them away from school, that we're seeing more and more truancy, not necessarily connected to students not wanting to come to school, but students being more involved in other things that are taking them away for athletics that aren't in our schools. So how do we continue to engage them and have students coming to school?
I know we're looking more in depth at these tomorrow, did you say, or should we? Like, I'm curious where we are as far as students considered regular attending.
So right now, we would fall in the exceed expectations as it relates to the state report card.
Okay.
And Brian Sutton has been working with principals on what that looks like as far as our process for truancy and engaging families in some of those discussions to get them to school.
Okay.
Yep. Graduation rate, we'll look at both the 4 and 7-year cohorts. This is on the school report card as well. We want our students to significantly exceed. We know that as a state, we graduate students really well in the state. We want to continue to do that as a district. And so having 98 to 100% of students in the district graduate is really a key priority. And right now we fall, over the last number of years, in those top 2 categories. We do a really nice job of graduating students and supporting them right through that moment they cross the stage. Learning Ready is another Life Ready, Learning Ready, Career Ready component. Learning Ready is specifically connected to things that schools are really good at: standardized tests, assessments, growth, all of those things. So as it relates to Learning Ready, the state report card is an indicator in itself. We have exceeded expectations for the last couple of years. We want to be a district that significantly exceeds expectations. So this is an indicator of putting a lot of things together and as another way to share this information with the community. That simply put, the key performance indicators, the scale is driven by this report card, so we felt strongly that it should be a part of the overall strategic plan. K-8 reading growth, a lot of discussion went into this with both admin, teachers, and our overall team. The state report card does provide information as it relates to growth in subcategories. We've talked a little bit about that 4.0 score and being above and below in subcategories and that value added. But we also felt that 70 and 95 to 100% of groups have a value added score of 3.0 or above. So the score as it relates to the state report card is being at that median 70 shows that more students are growing than are not growing. And so that is the indicator that if the state is going to, judge us and provide a report card indicator on this, we also felt really strongly that it should be a part of our strategic plan. So it's an and. One, we have to have these groups that are above that average score of 3.0 for value added, and we have to hit that score of 70, and we'll pull this out every fall, October, November, when we bring the state report card to you. Same thing for reading as it relates to math growth. We didn't want to create artificial growth scores. We talked a little bit about using our internal tool of iReady that tells us our students growing from fall to spring, but will iReady be around forever? We don't know. We do know the state report card is around for the foreseeable future to give us a rating, so we're going to pull that information out as a key performance indicator. We have a new state law in place, Act 20, that drives home the expectation for phonics-based instruction, early literacy, and also an assessment that's given in 4K through 3rd grade. So within that, we want our students to meet those benchmarks at 80 to 100% in those early literacy grades that set them up for success in later literacy. Knowing that students have to read by 3rd grade is essential. And so this is another indicator that's driven on the state report card, but also driven through state law. So we'll bring this data for the board to look at each year. We do have to give this assessment fall, winter, spring, so it is an assessment that we can continue to monitor through the process. ACT, it's a score that, or a test that all juniors take. Having a score between 20 and 23.5 certainly sets our district up to exceeds expectations, but there are districts across the state are moving closer to composite scores above 23.5, so we want to set stretch goals to significantly exceed expectations. We've been a district right around 21 for a number of years, so currently we would exceed expectations. But if we are doing all of this other work, we do believe this will be a product of success and continue to see that grow. Career ready, this was one thing that we saw in the family surveys of families wanting to make sure this is a priority. We have 5 components within this, really pulling out opportunities for students to have career experience days, that 90 to 100% of our 512 students have documented career path goals. We have a number of ways that we can do this, whether it's through Infinite Campus or tools like Zello, really to have students engage in what they believe that they want to do post-high school, post-secondary opportunities, and document that and give kids opportunities. And so this is something that we believe our elementary schools could latch onto, but from a documented standpoint, really clearly through middle school and high school, document that. Our elementaries did a really nice job of creating an opportunity for kids in elementary this year, but really driving home the documentation process, having a 5th grader start that work rather than a kindergartner saying, this is what I want to be when I grow up. We'll certainly continue to do that work, but this was also some things that we got feedback from the community, some of those engagement sessions. College credit or work experience, this is something that we document in the state report card scores us on. We want to have 90 to 100% of our students that have at least one AP college credit or AP course, a CAP course that gets them college credit in high school, a certification or dual credit course, whether that's in our new Family Consumer Science Foods program, whether that's in one of our technical education classes, getting a welding certificate. All of those things lead towards opportunities for kids and also youth apprenticeship. We want 99 to 100% of our students to have that before they graduate Port Washington High School. That would be to significantly exceeds expectations. Post-secondary preparation, this is kind of connected to being above, again, the state average in the 4 key areas. Right now, the state report card identifies 4 areas where we fall across the state. 4 of those areas are AP, I'm going to put Rachel on the spot. The 4 areas are AP, dual credit, work-based learning.
Industry-related
Thank you.
credentials.
So connected to our last one, industry recognized credentials, it is not a scored component of our state report card, but every year we talk about it. We are above the state average in one of the 4. We want to be above the state average in all of those 4. Job shadow, college visit, experience day, 99 to 100% of students participate in both a job shadow and college visit, giving them both career as well as learning ready opportunities. Rachel and her team at the high school has done a really nice job of adding opportunities to our testing days to get kids opportunities to see this, and we'll continue to do that and work with our counselors in the new position that Sarah had referenced before, really working together. That Bill Daggett, when he came to speak to us in November, is that industry needs our kids to be ready right out of high school, to be career ready, and so these are the things that we can start to work with and get our students ready in high school. Community service, certainly we have this in existence through our Port Pride Hours, really knowing that this is also an indicator of success, giving back to the community, hopefully brings them back to the community if they choose to leave, to whether that's for career or opportunities to give back, really maintaining what we have in existence of 20 hours of community service in high school, and we want 99 to 100% of our students to have that in order to significantly exceed expectations. Safe and healthy schools. Safety plans and having safe schools are essential. It's also an expectation, so we want all aspects of a safety plan need to be reviewed and updated annually with safety drills beyond the state required drills are conducted annually. So while we are expected to do and bring data as it relates to our lockdown drills and safety and SRP drills, we have to do fire drills. We need to go above and beyond and provide opportunities for kids, whether that's tabletop opportunities with the community, the police department, the fire department, but really wanting to go above and beyond what is expected of us. We're currently meeting and on the cusp of exceeding expectations, but what can we do more to create a safety plan and a safe and healthy school? Student behavior, we've talked a lot about major and minor incidents in PBIS. You heard our principals present throughout the year as it relates to monthly updates starting in December all the way through April on what they're doing. And one piece of data they often bring is students with 0 or 1 major incident. Are we meeting our expectations to support kids? And in Next Path, what does that data look like? And then also the risk ratios for all of those groups. Are students more likely to get a major incident based on their identification in a subgroup? And so we'll bring this data regularly to you as a board to also say, here's where we're at. We really want to make sure students are being successful and PBIS is working, and this is where that falls.
I have a quick question. So this, I've been kind of thinking about this as you go through, obviously not relevant for every single one of these KPIs, but will you be breaking down the progress towards these based on a variety of factors, or will it always be like the school district overall when we're thinking about our KPIs? So for example, are 2 of the elementary schools doing super well and then one's not, but because the weight, the overall average is good, we kind of skate by? Does that make sense?
Yes, so similar to the school report card that we get each fall, there's a district level report card, there's school level report cards, and then I also think the collaborative nature of our admin team that we can work together. So do we have 2 elementary schools that are exceeding expectations and one that's not? And what are we doing differently? So we'll start to share that data as it relates to our summer retreats with the board and what we're doing to either work together. Does that mean that those 2 schools that are being successful, that staff from those schools are learning or leading an LBC? This is what we do to be successful as it relates to PBIS. So absolutely, and then those skip goals and what our staff do or our principals do at individual buildings will look differently based on their needs as it relates to KPIs.
Okay, thanks.
Good question. System-wide student behavior overall, this would, I guess, connected to tiered fidelity inventory. Each year, PBIS asks us for some survey results and to look within the system as it relates to surveys and EMLSS. We want our tiered fidelity inventory, or TFI, to be a score that we report out to the board regularly moving forward, but that also meets 70% in all tier scores above 60%. So this is something that's new, that's been added, that Brian and our pupil service staff felt really strongly about, that we can certainly have students without major incidents and behaviors, but does it reflect that as a universal system in what is, again, a state document, state process that we can lean into on what this looks like? It also is the accountability of all of our buildings to do this each year, to say, did you fill out the tiered fidelity inventory, and where do you fall within this, to report out to the board. Student well-being, simply put, we want 100% of our students to identify at least one adult connection and one peer connection. This is something that we'll pull straight from survey data. We'll survey students, we survey our parents and families, as well as our staff, but these are all important that we need staff to, students, parents, and staff to feel connected. Finally, thanks for sticking with us. Engagement, 3, staff retention, staff engagement, and family satisfaction. This does relate some of those survey questions as it relates to staff retention, though. We want to see 2% or greater decrease in voluntary turnover as it compared to the 5-year average. So each year, we'll look at resignations, retirements, and overall resignations, and what that looks like. Was it 2% greater decrease in the voluntary turnover from the past 5 years, and where that falls. This does connect to our family survey in that they do believe we need to retain and attract high-quality staff. So I think this is a key performance indicator that latches onto that survey result. The next 2 as well are very connected to our staff and family survey. We want our staff to feel engaged, and we want them to be ambassadors that respond positively at a score of 8, 9, or 10 as it relates to, I would recommend this district to others. Those with a score of 6 to 7 are also positive. And so anyone 5 below, we're calling negative or not necessarily neutral. Neutral or negative do not respond positively. And so we want more than 50 to 100%. From a staff perspective, we're right at that exceeds expectation right now on the low end of that, and similar with parents and families. And so how do we get them to be more ambassadors and positive on this side? So each year that survey is important to help us come up with this information. Again, same question, family satisfaction. Are they ambassadors? Are they promoting our district and going out to say, this is a district you should send your kids to? We want to have more than 50 to 100% as that positive score as it relates to that survey question. Looking at this as a slide deck to present tonight, we also want to create a system that we can quickly move forward. So this is ready to go, pending board approval, for families to start looking at more in depth. It is an overall manual as it relates to all of these indicators we'll put on our website. The graphic that we came up with has the 6 core areas as it relates, but there can certainly grow and be more. That these are what we're focusing on now. And working with Matt Thiel at District Office, we can certainly add more. And this is a dynamic, ever-changing plan that we can continue to work on and impact. As it relates to policy, this page actually shows a vision statement that I know this board is interested in changing. But overall, really a clear, concise booklet we essentially could have available for families, parents, staff. This is where we would update annual information at 24, 25. This is where we scored, and finding a way to make sure that this is a part of our beacon each and every year too, as an annual update. We also are ready to go with a website, pending board approval that as early as tomorrow. If this is ready to go, we can put that out on the website that families can click on this, that will then share the strategic plan. And each one of these indicators has its own page. So over the last year, I feel like this has always been looming. We've always been talking about it. And this is finally the moment we bring to you the completed product. It's been a lot of work. I'm excited to share it through the beacon and also bring back staff with many of these indicators as well. But wanted first and foremost to share it in a forum with lots of people, hopefully tuning in online. But really a lot of work has gone into this. So thank you to everyone that has participated in any listening session the last 4 years around this process. It's helped to get us to this point tonight.
Well, thanks so much for doing that. I think it's really what we needed, and I appreciate all the work that has gone into it from every area. The question I keep coming to, or that keeps going in my mind as we go through this, is where are we at now? And I know I've seen some data, and so what is the plan as far as, because I know some things probably are going to be harder to place where we are right now versus others, but there's a lot of them where I think we already know where we are right now. So when and how, what's the process for actually showing the data of where do we fall for the board, the administration, as well as outside of that?
That is a great question. We actually just spoke about that at our admin retreat today, to say that next year at our admin retreat, it will start with 26 pages of indicators and where we fall. That this is truly what will drive our work. And of course, we're not going to just wait annually to update you in the community through our beacon, but also this will really focus my superintendent's reports, that monthly, if we've got some data that we can present to the board, we can say, hey, indicator 1 within engagement, we can present that we are meeting expectations. And so this is not going to be an annual thing in July. I'm going to share all 26. I think it's ongoing. And as we have results, we'll bring that to the board. And I love the repetitive nature of board meetings and rinse and repeat. And so if every July we can do standard 1, 2, and 3 from the finance and the first 2 from engagement, we'll just get into a routine of doing that. That much of our data is driven by when the state provides it, when we provide surveys, et cetera. So I think that will be the cadence that we get into with the board, that you're going to see a little bit sprinkled throughout every board meeting.
And then the online document that you were talking about, I think you said that there was an area that's going to show where do we fall. Will that be, like, whatever our latest information is, will be out there and stay out there so anyone can look at it at any time?
Yep, updated annually through our beacon, through our annual beacon report. But then as it's updated, we can say as of updated, September of 2026, or even October when we bring forth the budget, we can say that we have this balanced budget and our fund balance is at that meeting expectation or exceeding expectations. And so I think that makes this live, ongoing, that we continue to keep you updated.
Yeah, this is so great. This was very much needed. I appreciate it.
Well, I think it was very gracious of you to say that you had notes. Being around here a long time, it's been in excess, if anyone, I'm going to say Julie Backus's name, and probably there's not a single person in this room that knows who that is. But when I first became a board member, she was our director of curriculum and instruction and was in charge of the strategic plan. That's 25 years ago, something like that, since we've had a very comprehensive plan and something that had measurable goals and had any data collection behind that could show where we were and where we need to be. So I just wanted to say that you managed to put this together in a year, in addition to all of your other responsibilities and everything else that you've done in a single year. It's quite impressive, and it's going to benefit our students in the long run. So thank you for all the effort, because our students are going to be the winners again.
Accountability, clarity is so much driven by this process, and I think everyone in this room, our administrators talked about it today, to have something to steer us all towards, whether it's around data, conversation, this is going to, like you said, this is going to help kids. So, good stuff.
So if my computer went to sleep, if there isn't any other questions about this, and it's going to be very exciting to see it go live on the website and be also available to all of our families and our community to look at, to hold us accountable to all of these goals, and understand the work that has already gone into it and that is going to go into it. So it'll be really exciting for that to be available to our families. So if there aren't any other questions, I will entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve this strategic plan update as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Seven dedicated.
They know what we're doing, man.
Awesome.
So we will move on to not nearly as riveting of a, but the approval of the compensation increases for learning-based credits, transfer credits, master degrees, and longevity bumps.
I will turn it over to Mel to talk through this process as it relates to our compensation package and our new system that we've put in place this year that really drives home focusing on these key items first and foremost before we start to negotiate with the union on CPI.
All right. Sorry, I just want to make sure. So yeah, tonight we're just gonna, so there's two agenda items on, in front of you. And the first one is in collaboration with the Compensation Committee and the rollout as of July 1st, 2025 of the new compensation pay scale. If you recall, and we're gonna go through that, we've got a couple different buckets that make up that new pay scale and the compensation for our certified staff. That means the contracted school year staff specifically. That does include teachers, psychologists, school counselors, school nurse, and any other unique specialty individuals that are school year contracted. So that's what this is covering, this presentation is going to cover. If you recall, there are, and I'm going to go through this a little bit, there are a couple components of that compensation package now that the board approves, and there's other areas like the CPI that we now go to negotiate through the union. So we're going to cover that a little bit as well. So again, this is certified staff only. We will come back with all increases, which if you recall, just a reminder, that is included, all increases are included in the 25-26 budget as of now. So, questions on that? Okay. Compensation updated pay scale. So this is the proposed and approved pay scale that was brought forward through the Compensation Committee and all the work that they have put forward on this, that collaborative effort. The board approved this as part of the new employee handbook, so it is in place right now. The updated pay scale is based on those learning-based credits first, those LBCs, as we call them. That is a board-approved based pay scale, which means, or part of the pay scale, which means the board approves the amount of each of those LBCs. If you recall, though, we have been advertising $125 per class, up to 4 classes for this first round. In the future, we would come to the board before this point and get those approved. Because of the rollout and the timing of everything, we're going to do it all in one lump sum here with the notion that that's been what's communicated to the district at this point. The Masters and National Board Certification is the other bucket, the second bucket. That is also a board-approved piece of that bucket or that pay scale. This year, we're going to go through that as well. It does include those credits to transfer over from the old scale to the new scale. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Longevity bumps is another board-approved based piece of the puzzle. And then the fourth and final is the CPI increase. So when all three of those are taken off, so CPI, like it is 2.95% is what CPI is this year. Once those three buckets are taken from the grand total of the totality of the employee group, then whatever is remaining is negotiated part of that CPI increase based on those ranges that we kind of pre-established through the Compensation Committee. The entire information packet about our compensation model is linked here if you want to take a look. It gives all the details to what these are. I won't go through it again tonight, but it's there if you would like to look at it. Compensation, let's talk first. So the overall budget for certified staff for 25-26, CPI is 2.95%. We do have a 3% increase included because that is what the nearby districts are all going with as an average. So between the North Shore, Grafton, Cedarburg, they are at 3% for 25-26. That is what they're running with. We also, it's a 0.05% difference, so we did move it to 3% for the 25-26 budget, and we are able to make that work as of now, given the current budget status. So total amount for certified staff, right now, the certified staff is at $12,616,975. With that 3% increase, that gives the entire group $378,509.25 to negotiate with. So that was LBCs, the longevity bumps and credits, master's degrees are utilized first, and then the remaining amount is negotiated as part of that CPI increase. Questions about that? It's pretty straightforward. Okay. Learning-based credits, let's talk about those first. The adjustments for credits earned with district-approved coursework. Those are those additional courses that actually everybody's going through, I think, even as we speak, today and this week. So we will be having a survey on how those are going later. But for now, as we advertise, $125 per class, not to exceed 4 classes, for a total increase of $500. That goes on to their base wage. All of these are base wage increases that would go into that. So all certified staff have signed up for coursework with the exception of 2 employees, and that is for the 1.0 FTE. The part-time employees, a few of those aren't taking as many for various reasons, and they range anywhere from 0.4 to 0.6 FTE. So, but it's a healthy turnout. The total amount for all LBCs as of now, again, unless this could fluctuate just a smidge if somebody doesn't show up for a class, but as of now, it's $91,326 towards that original amount that was on that first page. Compensation adjustments for the credits, master's degree rollover from previous scale. So this is the one and only year that we are going to have some additional, this is a higher number than will ever be in the future, because if employees, certified staff had credits, so to move on the pay scale horizontally, you needed 15 credits to get to each column. Let's hypothetically say somebody had 7 credits. We are going to give them a one-time adjustment for those 7 credits that they earned already and were approved, and that is what's being taken in this one-time adjustment out of this bucket, and I'll call it this bucket. So the credits master's degree, if we do have a few individuals, about 4 or 5 individuals who did obtain their master's, if they already moved on the pay scale once into that BS plus 15 column, they will see the difference between what they would have gotten on that next column for the master's degree. So usually it's around $4,000, which is in line with our new scale as well. If they have not received anything for their master's degree and they're still in that original BS column, bachelor's column, then they would see the full $6,000 or the total amount of what they would move to get their master's degree. So again, horizontal movement, if you recall the scale. This includes also the prorated amounts for vertical movements. So if somebody was on an M and needed to go to an N, they needed 12 credits to move the vertical way. If they have anything less than that, they will get prorated from between the N and the M. That is all calculated in here, and the total for everything with those approved credits are $67,343. I do want to call this out with a small caveat that we have not heard back from every single person. We have not obtained everybody's pre-approved coursework that they actually took the courses. So this figure is factoring that everybody did take their credits, just in case. But I have not heard back from a couple of employees who have not turned in their stuff. We are going to give them a deadline of pretty quickly here because we do need to run this for the 25-26 school year. And we are looking to hopefully get that started by the first payroll before any teacher gets paid for their 25-26 contract. So it's kind of critical that they get their stuff in. So then B, the second caveat to this is 26-27. So not this year, but next year, we do have 2 individuals who had enough credits that they got paid, or they got an increase the second semester, and falling in that administrative guideline that they have to wait for budgetary reasons to get another increase right away. They are going to wait till those 18 or the 3 semesters, and they're going to wait till the start of 26-27. There's only 2 individuals that falls on, and it's a prorated amount anyways. So it's they do not have the full amount to move. So we are going to hold that in the budget for 26-27, and that would officially complete the previous, I was almost going to say current, the previous pay scale. So as of the start of 26-27, we will no longer have to go back to that scale. It will be archived.
I would say this represents the grandfathering in of those previous practices and the work that our staff did to submit courses in advance. They were approved, and then work through that completion process. That this was really our compensation committee felt strongly about. We felt strongly about that this is a pathway to the work that they've established and not changing, the direction of that.
Questions about? Longevity bumps. So again, we've advertised that we would be, and this is in that guide as well that was approved at this time, the total of $1,000 for anyone with a salary under $70,000. I did put the chart in here that we have in the compensation guide right now. So again, total amounts for longevity bumps So this is for anyone that has over 6 years of experience. So I just want to be, again, transparent and clear. There are a couple individuals within this employee group who have well over 13 years in the district and still are under 70,000, so they would qualify for this longevity bump, because anybody under 70,000 over 6 years would qualify while we're transferring over. This total is 63,910.
I have a question about that. So those folks who have more than 11 years of experience, do they get bumped all the way up to 70,000 this first year, or will they be eligible for a longevity bump?
Good question. No, it's $1,000 still. So again, I'll use a hypothetical situation. If somebody is making $62,000 and they qualify and they have 13 years of experience in the district, they would qualify for $1,000 this year. They'd qualify probably for another $1,000 next year. Let's hypothetically say they didn't get another master's, they don't have an NBC, National Board Certification, they took their $500, they still wouldn't be over, more than likely, that's 70,000. They will get the $1,000 increase up to 6 years or up to $70,000.
Okay.
We do have a couple individuals who are very close to $70,000, so they will get maybe this year, but then next year, they will not qualify because they're over 70,000, even though they didn't get the full 6 years, because again, they hit that threshold.
Okay, thank you.
get the full $1,000 even if it's over 70.
Correct. Yep, yeah, they don't go up to 70. Good question. They get the, I have it in there as the full $1,000, so it does put them over 70, especially with the LBCs. It is important to note that although LBCs come first in our schedule, LBCs don't happen till this summer. So we are, just like base wage negotiations, we are taking the end of 24-25, what we have in the budget, and that salary that they left with at the end of the fiscal year is what we are taking into consideration when we put them on these scales. So again, somebody, we've got actually a number of them that are at like $69,615, because that was J+. So we have a number of them that are at that rate, and they are going to qualify for the $1,000, even though they're taking LBCs, because again, they're ending. Now next year, they will be over the 70,000 and won't qualify. So it's a $1,000 boost, very close to $70,000 that they'll be getting this year.
But I asked, also to reinforce what Mel just said, is that had we not done that, that staff member could have said, well, why would I do an LBC if that's going to push me over and I don't get the bump? And then they don't do that, 4 days of work. That's not benefiting kids. That this process really does align with learning, LBC, and everything, so.
Yep, so that staff member, it's one of those staff members that's J+, $69,615. It's going to get the longevity bump if they're over 6 years, the LBCs if they participated, and the CPI increase that will be negotiated with the union. And any credits, that they probably have maybe banked in there and approved for. All right. Then again, CPI, sorry, not the pie increase, CPI, it looks like the C cut off. Again, it's based on that 3% increase total of $378,000, but if you remove those LBCs, credit masters, longevity bumps, that's $220,579. So that is a remaining amount for CPI negotiations of $155,930.50. So we will be going into the negotiation process with the union. This is the scale we have currently in the handbook or the compensation plan book. However, this is based on not having any of those credit payouts. So hypothetically, typically, they'd have almost another $60,000, or we'd have another $60,000 to negotiate with, because this is 1 year where we're using that base to pay those credits out, which we've talked with union representation on, and they were supportive of. So they want to see the people who put that money in get what they thought they were going to get, which I support and we're good with. So again, these CPI ranges may be on the low end this year, where typically they might be in the middle or the high end, just because of that extra $60,000 that's going into those credits.
So minimally, because the CPI is near about 3%.
Yep.
That third column.
Mm-hmm.
That's the range of what their compensation will increase.
Correct. And that
Is
actually,
that base wage?
Yep, that's base wage.
Okay.
So they're going to, it's a group, so we negotiate as the totality of the entire group, the certified staff. How they divvy that out and how that's broken out, this will be a unique year because of those credits. There's going to be some people who see, I think the highest we have is a 20% increase with those credits. And just because of the way that they fall on the scale, all the way down to some of them are less than 1% because they may only get a 200. Right now we're right in the middle actually. If I just plan it out or kind of do my own little okay, this is what would work in the budget based on who's in each of these categories, who's making less than 55,000. You're looking at about the middle of these pay ranges, but that will be negotiated out. So if the union comes back and says, well, we want 600 for the above 800,000, and we have to meet in the middle, obviously, and we want 925 for less than 55,000, I don't anticipate them doing that, but again, they could, then that's what we would agree on, and that's the increases that we would see. I will say, if somebody is above $80,000 in the district right now, between 200 and 600 in LBC, they're not qualified for any longevity bumps. Some of them have credits this year, but for the most part, then it could be closer to almost 1.5% increase that they're getting, where somebody else is getting that 15% increase because of the way that it falls out this year.
Okay.
Just like previous years, this happens every year.
But it's going to be this as well as the LBC.
Yep, and longevity bumps if they qualify, and any credits for this first year.
So it's not just that.
Nope.
Yeah, so the three things.
And,
All 4 buckets, yep.
and so, but next year, there won't be the credits masters?
There will be masters, but they won't be the credits that they've earned or been approved for already. But masters or national board certification, yes, they could still.
Okay. And did anybody complete national boards?
Not currently. They're in the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So again, so this was what we would negotiate and then come back to the board. So this is not the one that we are approving tonight because we have not negotiated yet. So what the board would be approving tonight are the amounts for LBCs, which is the 500, the amount for longevity bumps, which is the 1,000, and the total amount for any credits or masters completions by the employee group. That would be approved, and then we would go into negotiations for this amount based on the hypothetical scale that we see here.
Do other school districts use a chart similar? I have a really hard problem with our veteran teachers not getting 3%.
Well, they do, and this is how they go into negotiations. Many districts will go into a scale. So many districts have a scale, some don't. Everybody's a little unique. Some are based on, there's other North Shore districts that are based solely on like an evaluation system that's determined by the rules that they set. Now, what does that mean and how they negotiate that? Because base wage for many districts is actually negotiated, but they set their base wage at almost a 0 increase because then they put other increases in. So every scale is slightly different. There are a lot of scales. So just like in historically, by the way, this is not new for us even. Historically, if they were making, we have about 20 teachers that are making 96,000. If the union and the district sit down and negotiate and say, we actually want, we're looking for anybody on that purple, we color coded it, but anybody under the L or the J, that's what we call it, J plus now, anybody under J would move down a step. Well, that doesn't necessarily even mean that it was CPI. That's just what they negotiated too for that. So if you're above J, we're going to negotiate this. And there's some years where the high end didn't make even 1%. And there's other years where the low end didn't make CPI either. But in total for the group, based on the credits that they earned, which is you can, in our system, only master's degrees, our old system, you could only get those advancements if you had a master's or higher and if you were on the upper end of the pay scale because of the way that our movement made. So not only did they see those increases for CPI, we'll call them CPI-based negotiations, they also saw credit movements. So sometimes some people at the 96 or that higher range would see higher amounts, and some years they wouldn't. It all depends on negotiations. So, but it's not unusual, especially in this district. I want to be very clear on that. That's why I should have probably put this in here, and I can resend it in a board update as well. I gave the historical perspective of the ranges, and it ranges anywhere sometimes from 0.07% increase to like, that's what I mean, like that 15% increase, because of the way it was negotiated and the way people were on that scale. So if you're at J plus and you just got a stipend for $500 because you couldn't move anywhere, you definitely didn't make CPI for many years.
And I think one of the discussions we had a year ago during negotiations was the discussion of that we do not want to continue the trend of giving a stipend that does not add to base salary. And so we've already had some of those discussions. This is a huge win, that no matter what, if based on the biennial budget, if we had been given $0 and we were in trouble with it relates to our budget, 500 was going to be what we came to the board to say, we need to approve the LBC work, and everyone's getting 500, whether you make 90,000, 600, whatever, versus some of our staff that make 45,000, you're getting 500 connected to that. So this is, again, above and beyond, and so it kind of falls within those buckets. And so I think in discussions with negotiations last year, moving to a system that no one is getting stipends anymore, this is all adding to the base, I think is an important next step that the compensation system felt strongly about, the compensation committee, I should say, and our negotiations discussions.
And to that point, it is important to note that if somebody is making 96,000 and they have, let's just say they have a 500 plus the 500, they have a $1,000 increase. Yes, you're right, that doesn't do CPI, but that is now going to their base, and then next year we take that base to negotiate off of again. So it does accumulate upon itself. We don't have and we don't use a system in our district where our base is that 55,000, which some districts do. Their base wage is 55,000 times how many employees they have, because that's their base wage, and then their scale is increased, or you get these extra amounts that aren't part of the base wage scale that they're giving you. So we could still pay 96,000, and I could say 55,000 is our base. That extra $40,000 is extra. And Kirsten, I saw you nodding, but that is a way, that's the strategic strategy that, and then our base wage, so that $12 million that were negotiated would go down to closer to 9.
My base wage is significantly lower than that. That's what happens to me all the time.
So we are using the real, to, again, be transparent, and I think, not that other districts aren't, that's not an ethical move, that's a financial move that they're doing, which I can absolutely appreciate. Here, we do not do that. We use it as it was intended. Our base wage scale was our base wage scale based on these numbers.
I do have a question about, so when we are looking at all employee groups, we are making certain that we do the same kind of CPI increase, so that there's not going to be one group that gets some sort of significant
Yeah.
increase that's going to be different.
Yeah, yep, so how we, preliminary discussions on all the other employee groups, yes, they will all see that, they also have that 3% increase. So every single group, in some way, shape, or form has a 3% increase. So our educational assistants, they have a scale right now that every 3 years they move down on that scale. That is right now sitting at a 3% increase, so it works out pretty good for the CPI. So they're gonna go down a step, and then that was also negotiated last year already, knowing that we were gonna have about a 2.95% increase. Same thing with administrative assistants. If you recall, the board approved a scale that is more flexible, but whatever they are getting right now for the hourly rate, they get 3% on top of that, including the top end of the scale. So it's just a flat, again, across the group, 3%. Same thing with non-coded, custodial, food service, lifeguards, administrators, and teaching, the teaching group. Everybody's 3%.
And then something to.
But that's not approved yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And something to also say is that this kind of agreement came to be in a meeting with the educators. Right? Okay. So the teachers sat down, and this is the agreement that you guys.
The compensation committee,
Yeah.
they came forward, and this is the compensation model that we brought forward to the board that was built by the compensation committee. And then we also sat down with union representation as well.
Okay, I just wanted to just reiterate that this was something that was sort of.
Yeah, we didn't create this with the union, but we created it through a comprehensive teaching group that made up, I think we talked about this, but made up different grade levels, different years of experience, all the way from brand-new teacher to 20-plus years in our district, all pay ranges. We tried to capture all various groups from elementary to specialty areas at the high school, special education. They were all incorporated.
And the union membership then also supported this?
Correct. Well, we had union representation on, we had the treasurer of the union sit on that compensation committee as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
And so the other groups that you listed, which I know we're not approving right now, but the CPI increase is really their only opportunity for a raise, right? Like they don't get to do the LBCs or masters or.
No, that the
they would
only
have to
opportunity they get is the approval through CPI and or whatever increases deemed necessary. They don't negotiate off a CPI either. We provide CPI because it's probably what's best for all groups unless we find a discrepancy or a market adjustment that's needed for a specific group.
Got it.
And then we
Thank
bring that to the board.
If there aren't any other questions, we can entertain a motion.
I will move to approve the compensation increases for eligible certified staff related to learning-based credits, transfer credits, master degrees, and longevity bumps as presented.
I'll second.
Can you add in your motion the 25-26 school year, please?
For the 25-26 school year.
And I'll second that.
And we'll do a roll call.
Nicole?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Kirsten?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Yvonne?
Aye.
Alicia?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Great, and now we will move on to giving authorization to enter into a base wage negotiation with PWSEA.
I will move to authorize the administration to begin collective bargaining with the Port Washington-Saukville Education Association regarding base wages for the 25-26 school year, consistent with the provisions of Wisconsin Statute 111.70 and the CPI cap issued by WERC.
And I'll second.
And we will do roll call.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Kirsten?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Yvonne?
Aye.
Alicia?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Great, there is a couple of cards going around for board members to sign before they leave, please. And I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. I'll second.
This one's me. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.